You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
Hi, welcome to another Cold Fusion video. Dagogo here. Computers are only as good as the program that runs them. That being said, programmers sometimes make mistakes, and sometimes with the most hilarious consequences. Here are a few of such computing errors. The 5 glitches shown in this video go beyond the traditional glitches of computer games. Let's begin.
Number 5.
The First National Bank of Chicago error. So given that, loosely speaking, digital currency isn't actually backed by anything and is just a bunch of numbers on the screen, what would actually happen if a computer put a few more zeros at the end of your bank statement because of a glitch? Imagine checking your bank account to find out that you now have over $900 million in there. That's exactly what happened to Sylvester Dorsey, along with 825 other customers of the First National Bank of Chicago in May of 1996. I showed the receipt to a friend, and we just started screaming, said Dorsey. The senior vice president at First National said that the situation was caused by a computer programming error. According to the bank, surprisingly, no one actually just took the money and ran away to a secluded tropical island. And that's probably a good thing. You see, the total value of this error cost about $764 billion, and that's of course far more than the total assets of the bank. At the time, it was the largest banking error in US history. To solve the problem, the banks froze all the accounts and retracted the money upon realizing the error. I guess it would have been good to be a multimillionaire while it lasted.
Number 4.
Windows Phone 8 says to insert a disk. Windows Phone, Microsoft's answer to Android and the iPhone. The first version, named Windows Phone 7, was launched in October of 2010, and the next major version, Windows Phone 8, was launched in 2012. Despite being fairly well received, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Some Windows Phone 8 users ran into a pretty amusing situation. Windows would fail to start, and then the screen would show an error message which instructed the user to insert your Windows installation disk and restart your computer. It didn't say where to insert the disk, but somehow I think it would have been a tight squeeze. So this is kind of weird, right? Why would such an error come up on the phone in the first place? Well, it's quite interesting when you look into it. The message comes up because Windows Phone 8 is based on the Windows NT kernel, a kernel which first came out in 1993. So for those of you wondering, a kernel is a computer program that manages the input and output requests from software. So basically it's the tie between the software and the hardware. The Windows NT kernel has been used in the core of all Windows desktop operating systems since Windows 2000, including XP, Vista, 7 and 8. So as a result, Windows Phone 8 sometimes thought it was a desktop operating system. It's pretty interesting that the legacy code still remains more than 20 years after its introduction. But anyhow, I don't think phones with CD players will ever catch on.
Number 3.
The Xbox One password backdoor. These days, it's not unusual for kids and their parents to share the same console, but understandably, many parents don't want their kids playing certain games. To address this, Microsoft introduced the ability to set up an account for each adult and child, with some accounts requiring a password to log in. In March of 2014, a 5-year-old discovered that he could get into his dad's Xbox One account by giving the wrong password at first prompt, then entering nothing but spaces as the second password, and just like that, he was able to play all his dad's games. What's incredibly ironic about this is that the boy's dad is a security researcher. So naturally, when he saw his son using his account, he asked how he'd gotten the password. Once he found out, he reported the backdoor security risk to Microsoft, and they quickly patched it. As a gesture of gratitude, Microsoft even listed the 5-year-old, Christopher Wilhelm von Hassel, in their official list of March 2014 security researchers.
Number 2.
Prisoners released early. In 2011, California's prisons were getting overcrowded, so a decision was made to release some low-risk prisoners. Unfortunately, as you could guess, our lovely computer errors stepped into play and issued the release of a few high-risk prisoners instead. Approximately 450 inmates with a high risk for violence were mistakenly released, along with more than 1,000 other additional prisoners presenting a high risk of committing drug crimes, property crimes, and other offences. As it turns out, the early release program released the prisoners under a non-revocable parole, which means that they did not have to report to a parole officer. Even worse, nobody attempted to bring the prisoners back into custody after they were mistakenly released. Whoops.
Number 1.
Bill Gates' Windows 98 demo fail. Microsoft Windows 95 came out in the August of 1995, and The Guardian called it the world's first celebrity computer program. It was a huge success, selling more than 40 million copies in the first year. The question was, would Windows 98, its successor, be even better? The world would soon find out with a glimpse into the software at the 1998 Comdex convention. In those days, Comdex was a huge computer trade show. Think of it like CES on steroids. All the tech reporters came to see the latest hardware and software. In fact, the very first smartphone was unveiled there. You can click the screen now if you want to know more about that, or check out the description below. At Comdex 98, Microsoft demonstrated their new beta version of Windows 98. The event was broadcast live on CNN, and everybody was primed and ready. The stage was set and the world was watching. The demo started out well. Then the time came to demonstrate Windows 98's enhanced support for plug-and-play devices, a pretty big deal at the time. They plugged a scanner into the computer, and Windows 98 was supposed to notice the scanner and work with it, but instead, this happened.
And it's going to load in the appropriate drivers. You'll notice that this scanner build... Whoa. Moving right along.
That must be why we're not shipping Windows 98 yet.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
As you could imagine, this was extremely embarrassing for Microsoft. But as history testifies, it didn't hurt sales all too much, and Windows 98 came on to be a commercial success. With the release of Windows 10 being free and online, and open beta software becoming the norm, embarrassing live tech demos for OS releases such as this may become a thing of the past as we move forward. So there you have it. That was a light-hearted look at 5 comical computer glitches. If you have heard of any more or have experienced any firsthand, please let me know in the comment section. Anyway, this has been Dagogo, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon for the next video. Cheers guys, have a good one.
Cold Fusion. It's new thinking.